the chair. Let's see.
Good afternoon, everybody. Good afternoon. All right, thank you all so very much for being here. Welcome to the July 20th meeting of the Children's Services Council. The time is now 4:07 p.m. and I'm going to go ahead and call this order. Thanks again for being here. For our in-person audience, there will be multiple opportunities for you to comment throughout the meeting. If you do want to make a comment and you've not yet completed a card, please complete a card and give it to Clay right there, and then we will make sure that we can call on you at the appropriate time when you're ready to comment throughout. Once again, council members, thank you all so very much for being here. A lot of good conversations on our agenda today. I'm reminding everybody to please use your text so that I can remember to call on you and recognize everybody. With that, Ms. Clay, will you please do a roll call for me?
Judge Miller?
Here.
Mr. O'Brien? Mr. Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Hannah? Coming here. Mr. Mitchell? Here. What?
Yeah, we have a forum. All right, thank you so very much. Now it is time for us to approve the agenda. The revised agenda has been sent out. It has also been posted on our website. Council members, are there any other changes you would like to make on the agenda? If not, I will entertain a motion to approve.
Second.
I heard a move from Mr. Miller and I heard a second, I think, from Mr. Mitchell. So the agenda has been approved. All right, let's move forward. So we did want to recognize a previous council member, but I don't see her here in the audience. So with everybody's permission, I'm going to go ahead and skip that, and hopefully it'll be our flexible presence of Mr. Ben. We'll come back to that later. All right, I'm going to move on to agenda item number 5, which is general public comment. Ms. Clay, do we have any general public comment?
Yes.
Okay. And just because we have a large audience, and I do appreciate y'all being here, we are going to limit y'all to 3 minutes just to make sure we can get everybody in. So you my timer. All right. And when you hear the timer, I will try to raise my finger to let you know when you have at least 30 seconds remaining so you can begin to wrap up. Okay. All right. Yes.
In terms of the agenda, there is one thing that I'd like us to consider. I have a I don't know if you need to move up the motions for village and budget earlier in our proceeding so that it also be present.
Absolutely. That's actually the next thing after the consent agenda. So I do think we'll have time to get to you. But if you're comfortable, you mind if we will do those before we go to the panel council update, and then that way we'll allow everyone.
Thank you, ma'am.
All right. So do we need to leave those with the change of the agenda? I think. Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
You're welcome. All right. It's now time for a general public comment.
All right, first public comment, Mr. John Hunt.
Mr. Conlon? Conlon. Mr. Conlon, welcome. Thanks for being here.
Thank you. My name is John Conlon. I'm here to give you 3 reasons not to raise this rate. First thing is that the score was spent straight up. Reason is that property values of family group years years. Every time the assessed value of property up, get more. Third final reason that you should not raise the millage rate is I'm not. I'll pay the tax on personal home. But I'm not a commercial property. I'm not paying. I'm going to get it on. And my tenants, personally, are going to pass it on to their customers. That's paying. She gets the letter for her rental increase. She's going to write a letter to all of her moms today. Sure. Oh, hi.
My, pay going and I brought my roots of my property tax, just going down the county tax, public school tax, city tax, children's services tax, water management district, gas tax, that account for the cars, sales tax, whenever we buy anything, but the cruise tax all. And we are being taxed mostly taxing poor and people on this, and I want. And I would just say that, inflation is up over 60% to 2021. And we feel it every time those the store buying. I don't feel it now. But I also wanted to say that throwing money at this, not solve a cultural problem. Dads are important, well, physically, emotionally, hope you go to increase in celebrating for that. Make this very clear.
The cost of consumer prices rise in many food areas, yet so many are on fixed income. Their tax-paying base is struggling to pay their bills. I am here representing my family, friends, and my neighborhood, asking them, please vote to roll back these.
I'm here to ask you to reduce the millage rate and adopt the rollback rate. If you adopt the rollback rate, you're bringing in the same amount of money brought last year, and you're not increasing taxes on the general public. If you keep the millage rate where it is, you are in fact increasing taxes. The simple reason is that people simply can't afford to have their taxes go up. For someone like me, it's an irritant to have my taxes go up. But for some people, it's a true hardship. Especially if you're a renter or if you're a business owner, and your taxes go up, it's a real problem. The other reason I suggest you go with the rollback rate and not bring in any additional money is because, frankly, the money thus far has not been spent the way it should have been. The public was told when this went to the ballot that the money would be invested in evidence-based programs. And that seems to have gone by the wayside. Apparently, there are a couple of programs that are evidence-based that receive funding, but the majority of them are not. The bar is too low. Funded programs that really would not be good enough for my children. And if they're not good enough for my children, then I wouldn't want them. Then they're not good enough for anybody's children. You need to raise the bar, and until you do that, I do not take you to take any more money out of public pocket. Your own executive director told the Tallahassee Democrat a couple of weeks ago that the CSC is still working on getting its groove on as far as funding. And I thought that was a good quote, frankly. I appreciated your honesty. And I do not think you should take any more money out of the public's pockets. So you get the
Next comment, they close the comment, Mr. Irwin Day.
Back in 1341, back in the I was here a year and a half ago,
First of all, I think it's wrong for unelected citizens are in a position raised on taxes. And I don't have the right to vote you out. Second, a new organization is created as a county council. And over the last couple of years, it's clearly done that you increase the budget, your expense, administrative costs, a significant amount, almost $800,000. And that $800,000 turns on the program. We didn't pass ordinance or a past creation of this to create another democracy. I'll ask you. Let's look at your own numbers. The income between October 6th, June 30th, 23, according to your attachment here. Hey, I've got it marked, brought in tax dollars $7,698,000, almost $7.7 million. You add in your employee costs, your contract staff, operation, security, your administrative costs for that time period was $800,000. That means that's $800,000 my income that I had to pay in taxes. It wasn't, sometimes they talk about it as income. Well, it's tax code. It's not income. You pay citizen taxes. So we got, during that one period, according to your own record, you spent almost $800,000 administrative costs. Well, how much money went to children's programs? Programs for kids, what you advertising? A little less than $1 million, $982,000. So the kids get $982,000, and you folks sitting around here got $800,000. We didn't vote for that. Yes, almost one half of the tax money is being spent on administration. Now, let's look at $882,000. You brought in, the taxpayer gave you 7.6, almost 7.7 million. You folks spent $982,000 on children programs. And that's 13% of the money we gave you went to the kids. Everyone here should be embarrassed by that. But right here's where it says, is that my 3 minutes? Okay, 2 last things to wrap up. You've got over $10 million sitting in your account going interest, or probably you have that interest. Secondly, you told us there would be evidence program. In fact, they're not. That's not correct. Third, if you look at this, what it says, when I look at all these programs, you're giving money to the same program we were given to before you started. Finally, the document clearly shows we need to roll back the taxes. Do enough and it's going to cost 10% more property taxes. Be embarrassed. This whole thing is being embarrassed. If you're a public official, this should not be about it.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Are we allowed to yield time to someone to?
Yeah.
Because
I yield my time.
I yield my time.
What do you mean in it? The public's here. I got plenty more to say if you want to hear. Look, come on.
Excellent.
That's not.
Thank you.
You've abused your position and it needs to stop. And politicians here are being very.
Thank you, Mr. Jackson.
Thank you very much. I appreciate what you do.
First of all, you have to fund the house before the house provides services. So as a nonprofit director with 35 years of experience, you know you're going to put expenses front end into a business before you actually get a return on investment. One of the things that I wanted to do was to really thank everybody for the job that they have been doing. I know that this is a lot of change, it's a new process. So there's a lot of change and a lot of things that have to be created. And there are mistakes made when you start new things. Part of what happens is you start it, you realize you get feedback, it doesn't work, so you regroup and you do it again. I think that we really need to allow ourselves that opportunity to understand that we're all in it together, and what we really want in the end, the community that serves the children as best as we possibly can. One of the reasons I was here today, I'm gonna talk to you later, but I really wanted to thank you for the summer bridge program for this last summer. We weren't a recipient directly, but you all funded Hope Community. So Hope Community sent 3 of their girls that are living in homelessness to their families to our summer camp. And out of the Oasis Center for Women and Girls, I'm so sorry, I just jumped up and I was so excited, I started calling. We run a summer camp, and we're able to fund some scholarships, but it's all private pay, so we can only do what we can do. But your money actually allowed 3 girls to come for all 7 weeks. And Tuesday, we were all at the pool, and one of the girls who, when she first got there, was so angry and so hostile towards the team, came up to me when I was sitting next to the pool watching the kids, and she said to me, "I love you the most. You're my very favorite person here." And I said, "Oh, that's sweet." And then I watched her do it almost every camp counselor there over the next 30 minutes. "You're my favorite. I love you the most." And I know that that's anecdotal, and I do understand that we have to have data and outcome. But I think sometimes we need to pause and tell the feel-good moment that the money is not just going into a black hole. Nobody's wasting it. Hasn't bought a BMW for someone. It is going into building an infrastructure that for the long haul will change this community for the better. And sometimes it takes a little girl named Carmen who tells everybody that they love them to really understand that impact that you have on individuals in this community. So I really just wanted to thank you for your effort and time.
Thank you very much for your comments, Ms. White. Is Clay? Yes, next public comment is Robert L.
Rob Allen, lifelong resident, Tallahassee, 1984 Charlotte. I watched and said, I like Irwin, but thrilled about the option of what our electric is in service. However, this year, and I'm like Irwin, I watched this time, I'm going according to what understood it. And by the way, people vote, have friends that vote, unlike us. And their wishes are not being met. Aside from that, I know you all can do spreadsheets. We encounter government people. I made my living around government. We have a spreadsheet that's 3/4 sold, that can't justify it, or justify the services of it. But what about the other side of that? People like me, I run a small business. When the money ran out, spreadsheet didn't matter. That's where a lot of your constituents are. Their money's run out. They can't rely on a $10 billion reserve. So please reduce the level. That will help the Tallahassee area a lot. Thank you.
Ms. Clay, so the primary is Bill. That is. All right.
Citizen comments from observed citizens. There is no meeting time that we not extend for someone to replace. It doesn't have to count.
Robert's
It doesn't have to school board. And it doesn't have
Robert's
to.
rules of order.
Our decision's already been made.
It's Robert's Rules of Order.
So that's my. Feedback, and it starts with precedent that.
It's found in the Robert's Rules of Order.
I appreciate that. I would like to.
Let's don't be afraid of the truth.
We're not being afraid.
It sounds like it. I'm in favor of order.
Which is what Robert's Rules of Order
We're
does.
trying all the order.
Robert's Rules of Order is followed in the
They-
federal
let's make that
legislature,
up.
the state legislature, and all state agencies.
If I may, council has adopted comment
allows for 3 minutes. We'll allow that for everyone who wants to speak. We're not gonna yield time. If you've already spoken and you didn't take the whole 3, you don't get to yield that
Yes,
minute
you
and a half to another person.
These
So
people
we will
haven't,
move
they're
forward.
yielding their
Mr.
3
Jackson,
minutes.
thank
They're
you.
yielding their 3 minutes.
So that we can get through and get to why you all.
Does no one in this room know what Robert's Rules of Order are and what they're about
Let's move
and what
forward.
they
We're
say?
going to go to the next.
Because you clearly don't.
This slide, we have.
What are we doing for the 3 individuals who gave me their 3 minutes?
Yeah.
And so, I need to take, for 2.5 years, I've come. And by the way, I was an advocate for not the 3, but the 5 minutes. Because I believe that there were people who took their time out of their day to show up and could speak. But we voted on 3. In 2.5 years, we have as a council decided who got to go over 3. And it's gone over more than once. And every time it happens, I sit there and think, why are we allowing this person? So there were very few people in this room. I don't care who they want to give their time to. If there's someone who would like to speak on their behalf, let's hear it. I want to stick to the 3-minute rule, but I really would hope that as a council, if Mr. Jackson is there, the 2 other people would like to give 3 minutes to him. I have zero problem listening to Mr. Jackson talk about an issue that matters enough to them that they drove here to speak. And I don't have a problem with them giving him their voice. And that's just how I feel.
Thank you, please. I did allow Mr. Jackson, I did not cut Mr. Jackson off, and I did allow him to go over. And then I simply asked for Ms. Evans, if she has comments, to come up. If she wants to allow him, I don't have a problem with that, but I don't think she should just say, here's my card and turn it over.
I had
So
already turned my card in once, but then you said
this is what I'm gonna do right now. We're gonna move forward to the next comment. Do we have any additional comments?
I have one additional comment card.
Then here's what we're. Have ample opportunities again in the agenda when we get to the conversation on the millage rate. There is another opportunity for comments and other additional comments to be made at that time. We have Mr. Jones who's going to be leaving shortly, and I've got to move forward with the agenda.
We shouldn't rush because of that. He knew we were having this meeting. This is important to the community, and if he can't make it in his schedule, that's his problem, not
Ample
ours.
opportunities for additional comments.
That for the comment. And the loan.
Thank you.
were already existing government employees at the county city, possibly city, board level. All day, every day, federal level, we've got congressmen, channel, or signing public comment, public debate. Roles, you're not adequately able to provide a proper environment. Absolute. For people to express their position and take advantage of the rubber. You see it all the time when the Congress, does the filibuster. You're allowed to have other people's prophecy comment for you and move your time over to you. You should know that. And I'm a hard no. Statutorily, this word is effective in 2020. It's now 2023. You barely dished out new money, and you're wanting to hit the cap, which to me begs the question: you have your other things behind your back, actively involving the legislature at the state level to increase the tax. Wanting more money without hard data, hard facts, demand is for these children or these families or these individuals. individuals in need. And I don't think there's one person in this room, I don't know many people, but I don't think there's one person in this room who would not vehemently support the cause and the intent of the program. But without a track record, without results, without knowing what the true demand is, and with money rolled over from prior fiscal years, I just think it's irresponsible to vote yes on increasing it any. I don't have a problem with the way it is, but I'm a hard no, and in the absence of feeling that I am able to give my time to someone else, I'm gonna vote for yes. Because if you're gonna say hard and fast on rules you don't understand, and procedures that you should understand as council members, I feel as though you are stifling our opportunity to be heard, which is what the purpose of a public hearing is. It's public comment for the purpose of the public to be heard. And at the end of the day, we lose either way. When property values increase, we lose because we're paying higher property taxes, and that's the whole the taxes hold no trade to the time 36. Okay. And when property values go down, I'm knocking on the door crying, I need more money because property values are down and we're not generating revenue. So anyway, slice it, we pay more. We should at least give us some common courtesy to allow us to exercise all of our rights under the Robert Rules of County Board of Commissioners, state board of legislators, federal government, state agencies. Apparently, these boards the anomaly. That I would say I'm a hard one.
No more general public comments, all right. Before we move forward, comments, do you have a comment?
Yes, I have a comment just relating to the discussion right now. I certainly appreciate all of you. Spoken. But it's going to be general public.
Which means anything that we want to talk about.
Village rate, on the agenda, item 8.
Excuse me, Ms. Cummings, but with all due respect, the word general means everything. General means anything and everything. Do I need to bring a dictionary?
I apologize, but the comment, I'm sorry, so let's let her finish her comment.
Under truth and village.
Is she under five general public comment?
I am yielding to Ms.
Right.
Cummings to make a comment, so please
We're
allow.
not allowed to yield, I thought.
We're gonna have a vote on this guy.
I could yield.
Let's just stop, I'm
Please,
sorry, but
guys,
please.
I'm under.
Under the
Please.
village, Madam Chair. Recommend under truth and village section, where we can also have public comment. The purpose of this meeting, and we don't deal with truth and village and all of our meetings, this is a very important issue. So I recommend under that section, truth and village with public comment, and we allow citizens if they want to give their 3 minutes to somebody else to speak if they want. In interest of hearing all the comments.
That's fine, and we do have on the agenda, under the village, the section for public comment, and we can allow it at that time, okay, but we're not ready, but I do have under the request. Thank you very much, all right, let's move forward, all right, thank you all so very much for the general public comments. It is time now for us to move on to agenda item number 6, which is to approve the consent agenda. So in the agenda, we have the minutes from the June 26th meeting. We have the financials for June of 2023. And then we also have the executive director's report, which is included in the consent agenda. So are there any other items that are on the consent agenda that any of the council members would like?
I move to second.
All right, I have a motion. I have a motion to approve by Mr. Jones, a second by Ms. Cummings. Do I have consensus that we'll move forward with the consent agenda? Yes. All right, perfect. All right, we'll move forward with the consent agenda. All right, Mr. Rowe, I am going to move your section back so that we can allow ample time for discussion for the committee. Okay. Sounds good. All right. Then do you have a general counsel report? None. All right. Well, that was simple and easy. Thank you very much, Mr. Rowe. I appreciate that. All right, it is now time for the committee reports. We're going to do this in, we have 3 different sections. We're going to talk about the FL class. Then we will talk about the youth and village, the trim, and then there will be a discussion about the budget. So with that, Mr. Mitchell, I am going to turn it over to you to give us an update on the FL class.
Madam Chair, I have sent to the General Counsel and Ms. Clay ahead of time a notice that while General Counsel's informal opinion was I did not need to recuse myself. Sometimes you just have that feeling that certain times you just should, and I'm allowed to, and so I'm going to recuse myself from the discussion of the FL class, which is run purely by government officials and government employees. Nonetheless, I would prefer to recuse myself. That there's a letter fully detailing why that anyone is entitled to. So I would ask that for purposes of that discussion, that I turn it over to you.
Okay, perfect. Thank you so very much for that. And with that, I am going to ask Ms. Green to give us an update on the FL class.
Sure. So council members, thank you, Madam Chair. So council members, on page 12 and 13, you will see a resolution, 2023-04, that basically would allow for staff and give the authority of this council to be able to invest funds with the FL class. If you remember in previous presentations, they were established specifically for local government entities, school board, cities, counties, and after conferring with our general counsel, we do not need to procure these services, but to go directly to them. So that is the recommendation.
All right, so we have a motion on the table to approve the FL class resolution. Do I hear a second? Ms. Cummings will second. Yeah.
We wanted to mention this resolution. Rises down to this process of joining. Submitting necessary application. In order to join, to execute the local agreement, the contract. Brought forward to the council or start the process.
We do have a motion on the floor and a second. I will now accept any public comments as it relates to the FL class. Do we have any comments as it relates to the FL class? All right, thank you very much. All right, so do you have any discussions with any of the council members with regards to the FL class investment pool? You all remember this was discussed at the last meeting, and we were just bringing the resolution to this one, so we just want to vote to either pass this or not pass it at this time. So any discussion items?
Just my understanding there, and staff will communicate, give some parameters to bring it back to us. A resolution will be adopted. So consideration of what it is that would.
Absolutely. So according to what Mr. Rogers explained, they're just filling out the paperwork to get it going. Anything else beyond that will come back. Okay. Yeah, all right. So let's, so we have a motion on the table and we have a second. So Ms. Clay, if you would just please, before I go to vote, any additional comments, discussion items? Yeah, all right. I understand that Mr. Mitchell will be refraining, so please keep that in mind as you call roll. So Ms. Clay, would you please do a roll call for approval of the FL class intergovernmental investment?
Miller,
Yes.
Jones,
Yes.
Commissioner Cummings. Yes. Mr. Watt,
Yes.
Dr. Glenn.
Yes. All right, with that, the motion passes. So the staff is now authorized to move forward with completing the process for investment. Thank you very much. All right, now to the agenda. I know. Then everybody's been waiting.
I will take it.
All right, it's back to you.
Okay. So at the Budget and Finance Committee meeting, we had a lengthy discussion. There was public comment allowed at that as well regarding what rate should be set. And originally we had three numbers proposed: the current millage rate, which is 0.375, the maximum millage rate, which is 0.5, and then a millage rate that is the average of 2 is 0.435. I had requested that really based on an awful lot of public comments and sentiment, that we take a look at what was the rate, the so-called rollback rate, which is what is the rate to generate that we would need to generate the same amount of money that we generated for this current fiscal year that we're in. So we had this discussion. The Budget and Finance Committee had the discussion. It was very good. And much like last year's discussion, we chose not to make a recommendation. There were three of us in attendance. I am not going to put words in anybody's mouth because I think a lot of the comments that were made by the public gave everyone pause. It is no secret to anyone on this council, and I've been incredibly appreciative of how respectful each one of you has been on my position. So my position was the so-called rollback rate. Having said that, the other two members of Mayor were there four?
There were four.
Okay. All sort of were leaning more towards 0.375, and instead of making a recommendation, it was let's bring it to the full council without a bias one way or another, and allow the public to comment on it, talk about what our feelings were, and then make a motion, find a second, and vote it up or vote it down. In the past, even though it has not necessarily been my first choice, I voted with the majority to show cohesiveness, and I intend to do so again today, regardless of what everybody's position is. I have mentioned in my opening comments what my personal view is. Period. That's what I may guess wrong on what everybody's vote will be by the end of this. And if I do, I hope that who's ever on the prevailing side will make a motion to reconsider so that I can join it. Having said all of that, before you have the tax revenues that would be generated by those four categories. And they are the 0.344. Say that numbers completely correct. 0.344, 0.375, 34477, 0.375, which is the current millage rate, 0.4375, which is halfway between the current and the max, and then 0.5, which is the max. From each one of those, this is based on estimates that were provided to us by the property appraiser. They tend to be pretty close. They also tend to be, we can expect likely a little more than what their proposed values are. But it is a good gauge. It's how we have always voted. And I would encourage you to sort of stick with that. As long as you're consistent, I think people understand it. If the property appraiser missed by 4%, he missed by 4%, and that's not a bad record. So if you follow this big budget straight down, you're going to see what amount of tax dollars we generate. As you go, so you're going to see that. That's an important number. The other important numbers to remember is there are, and I use this in a big sense of the word program, there are programs that we have committed to that are not necessarily being completely funded in our current fiscal year, but will roll over to next fiscal year. So Ms. Green has done, I think, a really good job of sort of putting those into categories for us so that we really have an appreciation for how much money we actually will have the opportunity to spend for fiscal year 2023, 2024. And with that, I've told you my opinion. I would ask Ms. Green perhaps to kind of walk through how you've broken the rest of the budget down so that it will explain further what I'm talking about when I say there's buckets of money that are not committed but have not been spent and will be spent in 2023, 2024. Yes.
Like me to go to the budget. Now before well, I am okay with that.
I personally think it's important we do. I think before you vote on, and by the way, we are voting on proposed millage rate. There's a requirement that we have 2 more public hearings, which we will do regardless of how we vote. So, but I think before everyone makes that final decision, 1, public comment will be asked for, and 2, they understand the expenses that are in front of them for the coming year, and those which are current but won't be paid till
Absolutely.
Thank you.
So thank you, Treasurer Mitchell. So I will try to go through this as expeditiously as possible because I know we are you're under time. So Holly, if you will project the budget so that our audience can see what I am what I'm referring. So the way that the budget was broken down, we did it according to 4 millage rate types. So 0.3477, we could roll that. 0.375, which would be where we are currently. 0.4375, which would be a bit of an increase. And then if we went all the way to the cap at 0.5. So when you look at the ad valorem proceeds and the interest, that number is going to change depending on which millage rate you look at. And so the total income will change. But when you go down to the expenses, I will quickly go through this. So our reserves will be dependent on the amount of millage that is approved, tentatively approved today, and then move through that stage. Our reserves policy that was adopted by this council is a 10% reserve aggregate. So we never go above 10% aggregate. 8% of that is for contingencies in case we need to use that. 2% is for catastrophe. So if there are things that natural disasters, things of that nature, we have a reserve to be able to do those immediate needs for our children, youth, and families. So our total compensation, you will see that stays at 637, 158 across all of the categories. That is for 5 full-time team members. And then we have contracting services, that is for accounting, our general counsel, and other contracted services. So that we don't have all of the fringe that comes along with full-time team members. That's at 294. That was approved by this council in March. Our other contracted services are required by statute. So that's the independent audit. That would be 20,000, and that is set. And our payroll processing, which is $4,000 for a total of 24. Our collection expense, I always refer to Mr. Mitchell on this because I know that he feels a certain way about this, but we do have to pay a fee to the property appraiser as well as the tax collector. We are estimating that fee, and it will go up according to the amount of money that we take in. So you've got that column under ad valorem fees. We have to advertise according to statute, that's the 2,000. And then as a special district, we pay 175 per year. So you will see those amounts going across the sub-expense. For communications, we've got cell phones, we've got our internet, voice over IP, and then our virtual platform that allows us to be able to do business on our computers, that's 6,200. We have our dues and subscriptions. which FACT is our overarching group, and it is a huge resource for all of us. The expense in there also includes our team members attending the annual meeting, which is the one meeting that they have every year, membership in PHS, as well as the chamber. Information technology, we have some money in for computers, our equipment rental, and then our website maintenance and our software. I will say that under equipment rental, that is what you see in this room and in the resource room. This room is offered free of charge to all nonprofits. Anyone who calls to request, and we stay full. We have people in here all the time. Our insurance as a business, we have to have that, $20,000. Our occupancy, which is our rent, our furniture and our security system is the $80,000, just to put that in context. That includes utilities, janitorial, lawn maintenance, all of that. And then our travel, we're at $20,000. Really cut that down. We have a travel policy that dictates all of those costs there. And then our miscellaneous is awards and recognition pays to do that. And then CSC awareness for when we participate in fairs or in events, particularly for our funded entities. And so our total expense is $2 million, a little over $2 million, with an admin expense of 1.1, and you will see there in the adjoining columns what those percentages are. So when you look at admin, we're at 15%. We allow all of our funded entities to go up to 18%. So we're well within that. More importantly, our program investments and support. So you will see 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 categories there that we are funding. If you look at the little white space, which is really tiny on that screen, Holly, can we get it up? If you look at the white column, you will see family resource centers at $4 million. That will be encumbered or is encumbered. Family strengthening and parent education, this council awarded those contracts at $2.1 million. And then youth mentoring, this council awarded those contracts at $800,000. So it's important to see that when you look at our financial statement, it may look like there's a lot of money on the books, because it would be irresponsible to award a program and give them all the money up front, but rather require that they do reporting, data collecting, and give them that money in increments. So we carry over the money that does not go out to them at the signing of the contract. For early learning, we've got about $745,000 in there. We've got summer bridge programming, prenatal and postnatal, youth development, and our small investments for program success, technical assistance, our program software, which is our data management software, program research and analysis, which is our evaluation, making sure that we look at the program metrics and the outcomes for all of the programs that we fund, and then community outreach and events. And that is just partnering with all of our local funding agencies to ensure that we are walking hand in glove when it comes to funding specific programs. And then you see a green line. And in that green line, depending on the millage rate that is passed, we could have from $3 million up to $6.1 million available for new funding and programming. And this council will do a retreat on the 21st of August to determine how they want to move forward with our programming, refocus, and really decide where we want to go. So if you look at the subtotal expense for program investments, out of this year's money, we have encumbered $6.9 million for programming. Depending on the millage that is selected, it goes from 7.5 all the way up to 10.7. But the thing to look at is that the percentage of the money that would be taken in next year, 97, anywhere from 95 to 97% of that money will go out to programming for children, youth, and families.
Thank you very much for that review.
Just to wrap it up like this as an item. Want to do mine? Yeah. Okay. Sika, thank you. This, to me, this is important as well as each one of my fellow council members. For more than 2+ years that I've sat on this council, it's not lost on anybody. I've I look at every single penny and how we spend it. And, Holly, I can see you shaking your head over there. And I will say, I've had moments of frustration as well, okay, and for those of you who are here, here's the thing. What Sika just read to you, I have, with a fine-tooth comb, gone through it. We're not hurt, we're not. Many of you have said the comments, believe me, they're not things that I haven't said to myself. The budget that confronted you, with a couple of exceptions, Family Resource Center of $4 million, sort of is in limbo. That will come later today. But the amount of money that is going into our children's programs, and what you will see is evidence-based programs, is coming. And I know, because I've sat in the chairs that you're sitting in before, as a taxpayer and really as a consumer, I can just tell you that what was important to me that Ms. Green read to you, the budget, is this schmuck went through it. And I was not nice. I wasn't. And they changed it, and they shrunk budget, and they found ways to cut. Whatever we decide here, ultimately, it's 2 more meetings, but whatever we decide, it's never lost on me whose pocket I'm taking from. And I am looking at them. And I drive into my driveway every day, and I look at the neighbors to my left and the neighbors to my right. And it is embarrassing to me if I ever spend someone else's money inappropriately. I am very, very confident in this budget. How much we have, how much additional money that we have to spend on new programs is really what I want to talk about tonight, and that is what the millage rate is. So, Ms. Green, I thank you for the presentation. I thank you for going in, and she's right. It annoys the heck out of me that you as taxpayers are already paying for salaries and benefits of property appraiser and tax collector employees, but you're paying again, and it infuriates. There's nothing I can do by law. The statute requires that we pay it, but it does. It just plain ticks me off, right? It's like, why are we taking more money to send over there? We're already paying. Nonetheless, where we can control spending, we are controlling spending, and that is coming from a fiscal hawk, I promise you. So thank you.
Thank you very
I
much.
have a question.
I'm sorry. Mr. Watts had his card up, and then
Just with the top of the discussion, you see that.
It's not a retreat, I'm sorry. It's in your kitchen. Not going on vacation, be in this room, take 6.5 hours to really go through on, okay, for the work done in the past, where we want to be in the future, taking everyone's comments and thoughts into consideration. So it's really more of a strategic planning session. It's not a retreat.
Mr. Johnson.
Let's move on. Let's get back to the agenda. Back to the trim item.
We are on the trim item. Thank you very much. All right, so let's go ahead. I do have a comment. I'll keep my comments, and I will entertain a motion and a second to approve a tentative millage rate for fiscal year 23-24. We're not gotten to the public comment yet. But we will. No, not at all. Absolutely. I do want to get a motion in a second, and then we'll have discussion.
Madam Chair, I'll make the motion, and I'm going to make the motion that we go with the 0.3477, the rollback rate, which would generate the same amount of 20.334 that we did.
So we have a motion on the table for the rollback rate of 0.3477. Do I hear a second?
Second.
We have a second by Mr. Watts. Okay. So now it is time for discussion. Mr. Jones, did you have a discussion item? All right. Any discussion? Yes, please.
Okay, so let me ask about the roll-up. So things that may
or may not, for next year. For the family resource, right? I am in favor of the rollback rate. And I know that later on, we're gonna talk about the family resource centers, but I don't know, can you articulate if sometimes we have these discussions around a big program, and that maybe some of the programs that we funded that, hey, we only have this much. If we do X, Y, and Z, we're not going to possibly be able to. So how do you factor in this 4 million? If we move with the rollback and you move forward with the family resource center, are you able to articulate how that may or may not impact?
So the reason why you see the 4 million over in I don't know what column it is, I should have put some up there. The reason why you see the 4 million, the 2.1 and the 800,000, is because that is money from this current fiscal year. Because you all approved those procurements, that money, all of it, will roll over into next year. So as you approve family resource centers, the funding is already there and it will be distributed along the way. So the way that the budget is set up, that is why you don't see anything in those columns under the various millage rates, because that money is this current year and rolls over to the next for the duration of the contract, with 2 years till December of 2025. Now, at that time, or really a little before then, we'll know whether that concept is working. We'll know whether we want to expand, and then this council will take that into consideration as we look for funding in that next trend year, that is 2025, to move forward. So that is why you see those numbers for family resource centers, family strengthening, and mentoring over here off to the side. And if you go all the way down, you see 6.9 billion. That is money in this current year that rolls over to ensure that the contracts that we put in place for those first 3 are covered.
Madam Chair, I do think it's important to point out to their members of the general public. I'm sorry.
Okay, let's go to Mr. Jones. Then I'll come to
No problem. I appreciate it. I appreciate it. Clear, but we talked about this previous rollback rate that everything that had budget. Because it will keep us at the same level, because we increase our taxes. Everything that we have planned subsequent will be held harmless with us going for the rollback. Right?
Yes.
So anything, and for example, a schedule that we do, program services, in terms of what we anticipate with the timeline, roll out all our subsequent grants, responding to all of those other areas concerning them on the timeline would remain the same. Right? Because the rollback rate provides that same provision, right?
Yes, so the rollback rate will give us the exact amount that we raised this year, the 7.6. And because of the increase in property valuation, we would have $3 million with the rollback, $3 million that this council would be able to look at for any kind of new program. So my philosophy when it comes to looking at programming and awarding that funding is to go ahead and encumber the funding for the awarded amount in the current year that it is awarded, so that you know you have that funding for the duration of whatever that contract is. And then as you get close to the 6 months of the contract expiring, you determine whether that is a program that we want to continue funding. We determine whether upon renewal, we require that the program bring another funder to the table, because we can cut back our funding. And now you're bringing another funder to the table. So it gives us that flexibility to ensure that we're fostering the collaboration that we said we were going to do, and that we, to Ms. Frick's point, if it's a program that is not yielding what contractually it said it would, we have the ability to stop it.
Thank you. I do have a comment, but I'm going to go to the first.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Two quick things. One, I think it's important for members of the audience to recognize that Judge Miller is not allowed to discuss this by statute because he is a judge. So he will not be able to vote or can be discussed. A really intelligent man who probably has really good comments. And I just think that's important that we point out. The second thing is Sika, the way you've done this, I tip my hat to you. I've run 3 state agencies, and we sort of fought like cats and dogs over the budget process. But I tip my hat to you. We're running a budget exactly the way it should be, and that is we are looking at resources that are coming in and looking out into the future as to how they might be spent, so that any commitment that we made, to Jones's point, can be met. We don't run out of money, but we're not raising more than. So I think, Madam Chair, all done.
No worries. Thank you so much. Can I comment first? Here too, please. Sorry. So I may be in the minority, but my position is to keep the millage rate where it is at the 0.375, and I was very clear about that at the budget committee meeting. I so appreciate all of you being here. I really do hear your comments, and I'm a taxpayer just like the rest of y'all. I have 3 kids that are 20-something that are struggling, and trying to find their ground and where they need to be and what they need to do. But the reason why I don't feel like I can vote to roll back this rate is because we have been in these meetings and have had to make some really hard decisions about cutting some programs that were really going to help some children in Leon County. And I know that a lot of you are here saying that everything needs to be evidence-based, and I completely agree. And see, I think I say more than anybody else, we need strong metrics that will measure the outcomes of these programs, because if we give money to a program, I need data to prove that these programs are working. So I am really an advocate for evidence-based programs. But we had to start somewhere, and we started by rolling out some of these summer programs, and we're just now getting into our second real year of really getting these funded programs on the ground. So we are really looking hard at these programs, and we've had to make some decisions that have allowed children in this community to not receive services. Now, will my taxes go up? Yes. And will your taxes go up? Yes. But I do wish Neil was here with this jar of nickels. That jar just really helped me understand that my taxes will probably go up about $20 a year. And trust me, I will miss that $20 like I'm sure y'all will do, but I am willing to make that sacrifice to give that money so that children in Leon County who really need those services can get those services. The $20 is not going to hurt me individually, but collectively, that really has an impact on our community. So that's my position. I'm still there, and I understand, I feel, and I hear everything that you all are saying, but I know that for me, I do believe that those of us that can have to make sacrifices that will help others. And I do think that the change that we can make with that extra $3 million, with an impact on me of about $20, is not, will be able to cause a significant change within the community. So that's, I just wanted to be clear as to where my position is. I think that $3 million will significantly allow us to fund programs and services for children that are really, really hurting in this community. I just wanted to say that before we vote and before we move forward. So I acknowledge that. And welcome, Mr. McFadden. Thank you so much for being here. I appreciate that. Ms. Cummings, I'm going to allow you to comment. I'll leave it forward.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I was indeed a member of the committee chaired by Mr. Bishop. We discussed the back and forth about whether to maintain the village where it is, whether to raise it or whether to go all the way to the point. I took this. And I also appreciated it, the spirits came forward, and also Commissioner Mary and Linda, and talk to us about the impact
Raising the millage rate as opposed to making it stay where it is, or maybe even go with it. One of the things Mr. Mitchell pointed out, and I think we see it in the numbers today, is that if we roll it back, the council will receive the same amount of funding and more. If we roll it back, we will still experience an increase funding.
Not with all that.
Yes,
Yes.
it
will.
Property values increase.
That's what you
It
mentioned.
is-
Simple math,
Because of
folks.
the increase
Simple math.
in property value.
Can you count
We
them?
will receive extra funding because of the increase.
Commissioner,
Property
It's
value.
inflation.
I'm gonna do my very best to, the, if the rollback is based on generating the exact same to the penny as share. The reason that there will be an ever so slight increase is that the numbers that the property appraiser gives us are never perfect, right? And so there are some counties that they are anticipating 10%. We are not in Lehigh County. We're anticipating between 4 and 5%. So we're gonna see a slight increase just because of, I don't want to call it error, because it's not error. There's not a perfect science until
We know exactly.
Right.
Exactly, but now we are projecting, anticipating, estimating that with the rollback, we will at least be where we are, but a possibility of more funding because of the increase in property tax. I'm going to.
yes.
And looking at the numbers, if we roll back, the increase that we will receive because of the increased value in our homes and in new homes, that we
The percent. I think it's about a 7.46, 7.5%.
and translated into dollars and on here, is that about 3 billion?
So, yeah,
That is what
so you would get the same amount, but because of the valuation, we end up with $3 billion that put into the program.
How does it roll back?
Yes,
Yes,
if we roll back,
we roll
we
back.
still have, again, this is sort of the point thing, which I'm really glad we're having this discussion, and I'm really glad you guys are listening to this discussion. Madam Chair, the $3 million is because we have not spent all of our money. So we have additional money that we will have. We have not allocated it for anything. See this point, new funding. And in addition, perhaps, just to Mr. Watts's point, when it comes to the Family Resource Center, right now we have $4 million. It's not part of that $3 million. It is also rolling over. And I think the one proposal we received is 3.1 million, but we budgeted 4 million. So to Commissioner Cummings' point, a rollback, which is how you generate the exact same amount of money for next year as you did this year, it's 0.3447. But we are not at this point a zero base. In other words, we have excess money that will also roll over.
But when I generate the extra $3.1 million happens.
Is a rollover. We will generate a little bit more. That's why, that the property appraiser, it's a guesstimate. It's a pretty good guesstimate, but every single year we've been in existence, and really every single year in recent history, it's always, he's being conservative. He doesn't want to say to the county commission, that's big money. You've got this amount. Whoops, I missed by a little. You've only got this amount. Instead, it is a conservative estimate, and it always generates a little bit. It has for us.
But not the actual $3.1 million.
Yes.
Right, the $3.1 million comes from the, if we keep it
No.
at the current rate.
No, 3.1 million is already in your checking.
Correct.
You just haven't written a check against
I agree.
it, nor have you promised that you will write a check against it. That's where that $3.1 million comes. We don't have to do anything with taxes. You could go to zero and you'd still have 3.1 million. Right? You could spend fund this and other stuff.
Okay, so if I can finish it.
Yes, ma'am.
Go ahead. So in our committee meeting, I looked at the numbers because I was strongly in favor of maintaining the village rate where it is, so that we could have that same level of funding for our children. Look at the number, the cost of the increased value in the property. Because of the increased value in property in Lehigh County and across the state. If we go back the village rate to 0.3477, we would still generate the same amount of funding for the Children's Services Council that we've enjoyed this year and last year. In other words, it won't be less than what we have right now. And a possibility that we might receive over because of the property value. So I was almost persuaded and on the cusp to support reducing the millage rate. I mean, I'm a taxpayer like everybody else, and I recognize that the city has increased millage, but county has not. And I recognize inflation coupled with increased, millage rate, we are all suffering. I want, as a council member, protect revenues of the Children's Services Council. I want to protect our children, but I also want to be cognizant of the voices of the taxpayers, which I am a taxpayer as well. I don't want to make a decision or vote in a manner that's going to adversely affect our ability to serve our children, the ability to have funding, so that we can move the needle of our children in a positive direction. But at this point, based on the numbers and based on the presentation by our executive director, and based on our knowledge, of course, we don't know specifically right now. We'll know more if we get something more specific from our property appraiser. But right now, I'm sort of leaning toward rolling it back, and just see where we go. I know we have to have 2 more meetings. At those meetings, we should have more definitive numbers from the property appraiser. But I think perhaps rolling it back, as long as you're getting the same funding, you're projecting services, you're projecting contracts already hopefully in the pipe, so some of the money is already encumbered. I think we will be at a good position with our children. I don't want to disadvantage our children. The taxpayers voted for the Children's Services Council. We expected a certain level of funding. And I just feel comfortable if that funding level will remain the same. Appreciate it.
Any other discussion questions before we move forward? Okay, so now it is time for public comment. All right, so Miss, once again, we will get you through minutes. Let's start with you, Ms.
But we have public comment from Ken Wick.
Wesley. Good afternoon.
afternoon. Thank you for. I come here to wear several hats because I thought that county, I've worked in healthcare since 1973. Really a little there. I'm a nurse practitioner. I've also been a professor of nursing. So I have seen services for children and families where the rubber meets the road and been a part of that for a long time. So I care very deeply about that. But I also care about the people and about their money because that's become a very serious issue in the country to a lot of people and can also directly affect children. As a citizen, what I would say to you, because at this time I work as a volunteer, so my income, of us that are on fixed income, we don't have extra income. Even if you think that this money is going to be a small amount, trust me, the other taxes are going up. Just like gas and drive. So those are property values are going up. So taxes will be more on. Right now, my son, daughter-in-law, who also work for the state, they did not get a raise this year. So they have to pay more out of their income. So they've had to tighten their budgets as well. And that's just an example. Friends, family, neighbors, we all feel the same. So I want to ask for the millage rate to go back and because it makes a great deal of sense. We still have the money, we have the rollover amount. That's kind of a, and you'd be a hero to people in this community if you did that. They'd be shocked. Okay, so if we get news, if we get attention. So that's a plus. As a nurse practitioner, both federal and state-wide do have events. I did just 20 minutes of research online. I looked at your budget. That's part of your budget. I think on some things, maybe your heart is in the right place, but I think that there needs to be a closer look at what you're doing. And I would even volunteer my time to look at those things closer. Because I see where you have funded things the state was already doing. If you have any additional comments or questions for me? Yeah. Thank you.
So we make sure Ms. Wesson gets the website, the application.
Yes.
Yeah.
Next, they put a comment in the rate block.
I'm going to repeat some of what folks have said that are supporting at least keeping the millage at the same level or on a higher level. I think this council has done a tremendous amount. I think you need to get a lot of credit for what you've been able to accomplish. I think you're getting in your groove. Said I think things are moving forward in a positive way. You need to be as ambitious as possible in continuing to support making a difference for our kids. And disturbing to me, the city commission would spend an extra 4/10 of a mil to fund law enforcement. They say they're going to do something about crime in this community. I know how much you care about crime in this community. We need every dollar we can get spent for our children. It's not just saying we support our children. We need to step up and spend those dollars. To celebrate the progress you've made. You've done a tremendous amount in the 2 years plus. Look at all of the things that you've been able to accomplish. We're getting started with starting out with an interim director and Holly. Look at what you have now in staff. Look at the contracts that you have for the additional services you have. You have contracted for needs assessment. You have a program of study that program of work that you've created, and And you're moving forward with committing funds and funding programs. Set up the procurement process, set up the evaluation process, and you move forward with awarding funding. Just to, I know it's repetitive, but I want to mention what you've been able to accomplish. 1 year of summer youth, and you had a lot of successes there that you talked about more. And you need to commit more effort into sharing the good work that you're doing. You're funding it for a second year. 17 more entities are being funded this year. Youth mentoring, you committed funding there. Family support funding, capacity building, to support not entities in building their capacity. Funding to FSU, rebound and recovery program, the cognitive behavioral resiliency program for early childhood. You put a lot of effort into early childhood, and this will have good results for you. And it's evidence-based. Maryland, they got 11 to $1 return on that. So that's an example of an evidence-based program. Expanded pre-K eligibility for up to 500 more children, maybe be served to get critically needed services for themselves and their families. So you're moving forward with ambitious scope of work. There's a lot that you've done, accomplished a tremendous amount. There's a lot more to do. You need to do 30 last seconds.
That's it, Ryan. Yes.
I thought that was. Just finish. Let me encourage you to at least not go back to millage this year, because I believe that you'll be planning to do the same thing. For the children, finding dollars is such a minuscule amount.
Thank you very much, Mr. Washington. Right, there's no additional public comments. Okay, so thank you all very much for your comments.
She just called your name. I was on.
No.
Okay, all right, this is how this. I agree.
We ought to have some rules to follow.
Wait,
I'm anybody
wait,
who
wait,
rules, I like to have the
I'll
rules.
just take this, we'll have a public comment card, to tell me where the on the agenda you want to speak. It's not a problem. It's not a problem with speaking.
We're never getting it. You just not like to speak before you vote. Not that you were good. It's good for the element.
Do you have any additional?
Yes.
And fun. And is it lucky?
I do. Moment for comment.
Okay, can I ask one quick question? This play, is there anyone else in that stack of cards that is under this particular item?
Yes, there is.
See you.
Yeah.
Okay, so Mr. Jackson, so that would mean that he would have 6 minutes. Okay, all right.
I don't have time.
Okay.
Yes.
So he is submitting on,
He has 3 minutes.
Mr. Jackson, you, at the end of your comments, please submit a request card for this particular section. And let's just move on. You have 6 minutes.
I'll sign anything.
Thank you. Thank you.
Ready?
Yeah.
All this, I'm straight for straight. Hey, judge, I need to about Robert for the board. And I appreciate the reason why I was. But you can judge. The other thing. Nice. This page. Wow.
Posted money.
So the point being, if you want this to be, to have input, I have information active. So my comment are based on the June 2023 number. these, that's what I have those. The comments I would have started on. You know, everyone's gonna say, let's do kids. We're doing this with kids. But let's look. Do that for, you know, kids. Okay, so let's feed kids first. And let's protect the kids. And that's why. I got stopped. I was going through these, and there was, just according to this calculation of mine, you know, right now there's 10 billion in the account. There's at least 5. If you look at it, it's what bothers me. The number according to records, the 982,000 used in children's programs. They only 30% of the total revenues that we can see from the taxpayers. Yeah. So if you had that much money, that whole, they are saying, well, it says can, maybe you got this 4 billion, might be spending, so maybe you only have 5 or 6 billion. It's like for cash. If you're sitting there with 6 million dollars, we were never convinced me or anyone back here, I know of it, that we need more money. But I think we need to focus on is what to do. Take the program we have, let's evaluate the program we have before we worry about starting the program. So far, I haven't seen much as far as the program. Another question. So that's what I don't think you need at the dollar for. Please sit here, members of the station, and we can roll it back. We roll it back, we still gonna have the same amount of money. We're not asking this guy to buy the same, keep it the same. They would be able to enjoy taking and the interest in this organization. Evidence-based programming, the PhD in psychology, there's a lot of evaluation, research. Evidence-based programming, probably has several definitions. I'm quite sure what this one is. I was looking at a list. I was looking at a list. I know days ago. 40 girls club, 52,000. That evidence-based program. I like it. Where you get money? Farm Sunshine Academy. I live in Florence. Okay, that's fine. The morning art. I like art. Okay. All these programs are is the new programs, the dynamic new direction that this commission was going to take it. Is this how we resolve problems with children? Are these the evidence-based programs that we're talking about? I know they look like the same program for the most part. They're the city and so then, if this group is not doing evaluation of big problems, if they're not using the evidence-based programs, and that's what you're saying these are, then it raises the question. Why don't we let a county have people feeling like for it? Save the 800, 900,000 a year in administrative expenses. And we would have, money for kids. That's the county, or that's the city government. Decide and distribute this asset. There's no reason this group make a decision about a small amount of money. There's a budget. And then they go ahead and get the advisory board. And we can save them $100,000 and put that in the program. And then the last thing we're talking about. Go ahead, Esther.
That was.
Question. I have questions about $4 million. About spending $4 million. I have 3 or 4 people knowing them, exactly what that is. Thank you.
Yeah, another comment, we agree.
I don't want to be competitive, but I've been listening to the comments. Kind of counting those as we go along. It looks like y'all were leaning toward going with the rollback rate. That's what I think I'm hearing. And I want to tell you, thank you. I think that's a good decision. You'll get the same amount of money, probably a little bit more, still fund programs. It will not be a hardship on struggling people with county. I also think that I'm hearing, and I heard this in the finance, it's almost to the point to become more targeted. I hope that's true. And I hope that you start funding maybe a little bit more judicious in funding evidence-based programs. The main thing is, if I hear what I think I'm hearing, I think I want to go with the rollback rate. I think that's a good decision. And I think it's fair to the children and it's fair to the taxpayers. And that way you can kind of do a happy medium.
Thank you, Chris. I appreciate it. Ms. Clay, do we have any additional? All right, we have no additional public comments. Okay, so I think we've come to an end. It's time for us to vote. Any additional discussion items for any of the council members? No. No, this is forward. Government. That's what Mr. Rhodes did look into that, and we are able. Go ahead, please.
Five votes present, already 8 total. Other is statutorily. It doesn't have to force, it's on for what it does to is results in only 4 members present in those villages. So if you make a decision on that or what's on the vote, you have to agree on the votes.
There. All right, not a problem. Not sure.
Maybe the beginning. The first year we said, I said, I'm going to make a motion. I guess that there's another motion that's going to be made. And if my motion wins, I will move a reconsideration to include those that didn't vote, and that I would like the same if in the event that that my motion it became very clear at that meeting that that I was not going to win. So I voted for the motion. I am not a predictor of votes, but I would like to afford, if it is a 3-1 vote, I'd like to afford you the ability to, I will move for reconsideration if you would like. I think it's important to remember this audience that they know that the chair's heart is just in the right place. Her head is also in the right place, and reasonable people can disagree reasonably. And I appreciate everyone's patience with this process today, but also the last 2+ years. We really are beginning. Well, we have found our group, and I'm proud of her. I know there's many who will disagree with me reasonably in this audience, but with that. My motion is that we set the millage rate at 0.3477.
budget, I'm saying, and I appreciate your comments.
Excuse me, I have a question.
Before we really.
Could I clarify what you just said? I just want to be sure, Mr. Mitchell, I understand.
Okay, let's just, we're gonna take our vote and then you can talk. to me
It's what you
afterwards.
just said, though. I don't understand. Are you saying you
He
want it?
just repeated his original motion. The motion on the floor right now
Right.
is the rollback rate.
But you want the opportunity to change your vote? If it doesn't
He's
go
not
with the
changing his
majority?
vote
Okay,
at all.
all right, okay.
At all.
Madam Chair, yeah, I just want to, make a comment, just about the comments that we have heard in the comments about. We have. Now, she evaluated. So, okay, positive impact on our children, so I didn't want anybody in the audience to really think that we contract services for our children, that we are not going to evaluate those programs and determine, how effective they are with working of them. And of course, we strive for evidence. And the other thing is, I would like to also commend the staff. I think it's hard to get a program started, and I think it's hard to implement because I think the staff that we have, the director that we have, they have worked hard to put this program into motion. And I think the Children's Services Council standpoint, we have contracted with very reputable entities in the community that do great services for our children. And I agree with the final analysis when we evaluate those programs, especially summer programs, those that are on board now, we're going to see the positive impact that it has on our children. So they're doing a great job. It's a small, very small staff, but they, along with the council members, we have the children at home. This council is we're involved with the taxpayers so that we can positively impact our children. And I think we're certainly on the road to do that. Even after 2 years, we're on the road to do that.
Thank you. I do, before we go to vote, I do want to thank the audience for being here. And your comments are really listened to. And I wanted y'all to be very much aware of that. I would invite you all to please come to all of our conversations, not just the trim discussion conversations, where we tend to have the largest percentage of participation. But I think that if you all are here to see, it's really hard. I heard you read off the programs from your list, Mr. Jackson, and it's really hard to understand what we're actually funding through those programs unless you're intimately involved with what is the Boys and Girls Club doing? What is the Boys? We're not just giving those organizations money, it's the services that we are funding for them to provide for the children. And I think that being engaged in a lot more of our conversations will allow you to have a deeper understanding of that. And I think that helps you understand our mindset. I think that we have these conversations. So the doors are always open, and I welcome all of you to always be here. Thank you for coming. I would love to see the room filled like this at all meetings, not just the shrimp conversations, of course. So I know this is definitely an area of interest, but I think once you all hear some of the things that we hear on an ongoing basis, it allows you to better understand what we deal with on a day-to-day basis. So I just want to say that. I do want to comment on what you said, Mr. Mitchell. I don't like divided board at all. I think my position is very clear. I do remember you from the very first meeting, and you were, it was hard. It was a hard vote for you, but you wanted to show big unity, and I do too. So I appreciate that, and let's just see what we like. Yeah, I know, absolutely. All right, thank you. With that, Ms. Clay, let's do a roll call vote, please. And this is the vote to approve the millage rate, the rollback of the tentative millage rate, yeah. The tentative millage rate of 0. Let me get it right. 0.477, which is the rollback rate. 0.3477. Thank you very much, which is the rollback rate. Ms. Clay.
Yes. Yes.
We have it again. All right, so thank you very much. That is that.
Okay, before anybody leaves, this, Dr. Glenn is right. it is really, it is a really good feeling to see this many people who've taken the interest in the council. Yes, the trend I've noticed, but the council. The council does have evaluation teams, and they have been, it's been hard for us to find people, a good group of people, a diverse group of people to be participants on those evaluation teams. There is an application on our website. This claim, I don't remember exactly where it is, but I know it's on the website where you can become a member of an evaluation team. To Dr. Glenn's point, to better understand what we're funding, those programs would come before you as a member of the evaluation team, and you would see and have an intimate knowledge of what those programs are. And you know, Ms. Fritz has participated in those, and I'm
way too much.
yeah. But I encourage with all these faces and all these, you know, very bright people in this room, I encourage you to please participate.
Thank you very much. I second that. Thank you very much.
And have a, bring it up. You go to CSCLeon.org, you go up under news. And up under news, there is an opportunity for being volunteer.
And we are begging for evaluators. We are really looking for people to read through those programs and help us select programs that are really going to be impactful for our kids. So I just wanted to amplify that.
I would say we're actually transitioning the system that actually haven't turned on as we do have the state conversation on another agenda item. It'll be back up, so it's not there right this time. So I would just. Without me to suggest.
So look tomorrow.
Wait a minute.
Look tomorrow. Wait, thank you very much. All right, we have moved past the term conversation. Thank you all so very much. It is time for us to do the budget. You want to go ahead and I know we've already talked about it at nausea. All right. So with that, let's entertain a motion and a second to approve the tentative budget.
I will move the budget. Okay.
All right, we have a motion by Mr. Mitchell, a second by Ms. Cummings. And so. Okay. Quickly, any time for any discussion items on the budget from anybody? No? Okay. So with that, I would like for us to do a roll call vote.
Yeah.
Do I need to wait for?
You don't, because we'll have four.
Okay.
You want to wait?
For Mr. Okay, so I do want Mr. Miller to vote. And so he has stepped away for a moment, so let's just give him 1 second. And then,
Because we just lost that forum without.
yeah.
Right.
Okay, so while we're waiting for Mr. Miller to come back, we had a very special guest enter the room in the meantime. So I'm going to take this opportunity to recognize Ms. McFadden. I know you missed us. Yeah. I know. Yes, we can. Okay. I do want to read a couple of stuff that for those of you, so I know Rich likes that, but you have been a founding member, an inaugural member of this council, and you've impacted us significantly. And you've only been gone for a couple of months, and we do miss you. So I just wanted to let you know that personally. For those of you who don't know Ms. McFadden, as I said, she was an inaugural council member. She was appointed to this council by the governor as a community resident. She served from May 2021 through April of this year, and the impact of her service is still being served. She led the council in the investment work group, which has led us today to approve the F-class funding, which we discussed earlier on the agenda. Additionally, she spearheaded the establishment of the council's reserve policy to ensure that there are ample resources to continue our work in times of catastrophe or in case we have a contingency need. And therefore, on behalf of, please come forward and you can come center. We'll want to make sure we get these to you. Let's see, come just get around. All right. I'll come into you. I'll stand in the middle of the room.
Oh, I get my picture that's hanging on the wall.
You're right. Yeah, no, thank you so very much. You are so much. Thank you very much. All right, but you got, all right.
Turn the thing around.
Thank you. Oh, yes, okay. And, thank you. Now, for a quick break, I'm council, we can just go get a picture of Ms. Daniels quickly, and then we will meet you. And then you guys are back on the budget. Yeah. We'll be right back, guys. We just want to pick that.
Yeah, family. Yeah. It's just, they,
Yes.
yeah.
But thank you.
We're family. Now, big fan. Not. I know. Okay, that's it.
Yeah, okay.
Anyway.
All right. Well, I'm sorry for the interruption. We just had to take that moment to recognize that. All right, so we currently have a motion on the table to approve the tentative budget for fiscal year 23-24. So will you please do a roll call vote for me, Ms. Clay?
Yes.
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 Yes. All right, budget is approved, everybody. All right, thank you all. Tentative budget is approved. She keeps reminding me, this is a tentative budget. All right, thank you very much. All right, thanks again. All right, it is now time for us to move to agenda item number 9, which is the Family Resource Center Management Procurement. So I think all of you remember the briefing meeting we had on June 26th, where we discussed the Family Resource Centers. There was a vote for the process to begin again. So Ms. Green, I'm going to ask you and the staff to please walk us through the revised procurement and the related revised process.
Yes, so thank you, Chair Glenn. So council, if you remember on June 26th, after looking at the recommendation from the evaluation team for the ITN, the council decided to reject all and to re-procure for family resource centers. At that time, we asked us to go back and get some feedback, hold a few more sessions with some possible applicants, see if there was a way that we could improve upon the ITN and add additional things that might make it more appealing for prospective providers to apply. And so with that, with your permission, I'd like to turn it over to Holly McPhail, who serves as our special projects manager. And in that role is the procurement manager for this procurement. So Holly, I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you guys so much for the opportunity to share and for your guidance on the previous meeting. I did want to just start for purposes of the public information and to just reiterate how we got here, is that originally when we did our needs assessment, what it revealed was that we don't have necessarily a shortage of services in our community, but that we have a significant access issue. I think that the needs assessment revealed that there were over 1,000 providers that are currently serving children and families here in Fremont County, but that there are significant transportation barriers, there are significant neighborhood inequities for how they know about these services, how they access the services. So we then hosted family listening sessions this past spring, and that confirm that the number one requested family support service was this idea or this concept of trusted navigators. Again, this, how do you build trust between providers? And we know that trust is one of the mitigating factors in addressing some of those equities. I did notice, I noted up here on the slide what some of the other highly requested services were. That was they're primarily around basic needs, housing, healthcare, food, cash assistance. There are other sources for meeting those needs. So really CSC wanted to step in, and the plan was to build neighborhood-based staff resource hubs in direct response. This is one of the recommendations that now about the needs assessment that we concluded last summer. Then again supported. So that's where the family resource centers came out of. They are an evidence-based model, and in the statement of work, in the ITN, there's a lot of information about the evidence behind FRCs and how, as long as they're following a very clear set of national standards, that's what's associated with family resource centers. We can also confirm that while there are other resource centers out there in this community right now, there are none that operate using the national standards that we are referencing. So again, like keen eye on evidence base that we're trying to build out. I just wanted to kind of start with that. We have reworked the invitation to negotiate, and this is in the packet, the handout that you have in terms of the revised statement of work that will. Oh, you don't have the statement of work?
No. It wasn't.
I'm sorry. Okay, well, so I will, what I can tell you about the revised statement of work is that there were several core services and a lot of feedback that we received. We held an informational session, we held an informational session where we invited 3 different nationally recognized family resource centers to come and present to the community. One of them came from the Partnership for Strong Families over in Alachua County that actually serves sort of greater, it's not just one county, multiple counties. Another one came from Connecticut, where they were really focused on early childhood services. That was identified as one of the our focuses by the council. And then another one right out of Atlanta, Georgia, that was really focused on providing family services to Spanish speaking families. So they came and they shared their lessons learned with the community, and it was a 2-hour kind of back and forth. We had lots of questions come in. It's completely recorded. It's up on our YouTube channel. So if you want to go back, Commissioner Cummings joined us for that as well. And then we held 2 just feedback sessions where we asked everyone to please watch the informational session first, and then come and provide us with 2 of those. We also recorded those as well. I kind of asked for what are your thoughts on location, on need, on the actual support services? How do you establish that trust factor? The folks that came and joined us, they spoke a lot about building trust and how you do that through this customer service lens. So lots of great lessons learned for it. And then we incorporated all of the feedback that we received in those 2 sessions into a revised statement of work, as well as a revised ITN instrument. So what she's grabbing for you now, sorry that they're my apologies, because this all concluded Tuesday afternoon, but then we've been busy working trying to have a revised instrument for you guys to look at. What we really found and what we strengthened in the proposed statement of work is taking the protective factors framework, which was incorporated heavily into our needs assessment, and really bringing that to the top and asking any proposals to respond directly. How would they, in essence, operationalize the provision of building to those protective factors? We also went through kind of the 4 service areas and expanded that to provide a few more examples of what that means. I think that she'll do momentarily in terms of what those areas are. There were 6 core services in the original version, and now we added a 7th based on the feedback from the community, and then shifted the little pieces in terms of the examples that were provided. In addition, thinking through the timeline and pulling out what we really felt needed to be strengthened, was the evaluation rubric and understanding what we were asking everyone to respond to. So that was edited out so that the ITN itself was far more descriptive of what we wanted to see. So we'll start with just kind of going through the statement of work. That really hasn't changed a lot in terms of what we want with the instrument it has. So if I understand our process correctly, but we want to walk through what we're proposing to move forward with. Have you had any questions about the statement of work itself? And then we'll talk about the evaluation process. So the actual process itself, our goals are we can approve a statement of work here tonight. Then this would be the new schedule of activities in terms of how they would flow. Our goal is to release the procurement on August 1st, host a bidders conference on August 9th, and then have a period of time for written questions to be submitted and this is in concert with our procurement policy. Having your new proposals due on September 21st. And then having about 10 to 11 days to do the first part of the evaluation, and then come back, shortlist that based on written evaluation, invite back in for vendor presentations, so that's where we would start the negotiation process. Some of those meetings are deemed closed sessions in accordance with the state law. Having the final procurement results. Having it for whatever top candidates that we have, they would submit a best final, having that back to you and before you with hopefully and then a recommendation to approve funding at the November council meeting. Then if that intent to award moves forward, we would approve that final contract at the December meeting, and then the contract start date would be January 1st. Because this does shift everything a bit, we would extend the contract instead of it ending as the original one, which is August 1st, it would make it a full 2-year or 24-month contract. But we would do a renewal eligibility assessment, and that's what I was speaking of earlier, of ensuring that we're getting to that point where we're hitting the marks, we determine are these working, do we need more time, do we want to expand, do we want to do more? The other kind of big change, and I'll leave that up there for a minute, come to that later. The other kind of big change that was in the procurement is that $4 million, one of the partners that has been allocated to do this, it was initially to build I think it's 2, changing the language to say a minimum of 2, because depending upon the right partnership would determine how, like, what does that best value look like. When we heard from Alachua, or Gainesville, they are partnership for strong families. They said that they were running their centers at about 180,000 per center, but their model was slightly different than what we're talking about. They were able to leverage in-kind donations and improving space so that the expense of rent and things like that were not included. Whereas one of the other ones shared that they were spending about 400,000 per center. So it can vary greatly. So we did recommend changing the language from just 2 to a minimum of 2. If a provider thinks that they can explore the 2 in the first 2 years and they want to propose that, because location was talked about a lot. And I do believe the great example, if you start with the library system, or you might start with the library here centrally located, and then you figure out that hub and spoke model with the idea that you come further out. That was a big change. The other big change that was really spoken about was that this is a collaboration and not necessarily a single entity. Now, while we would only award a contract to a single entity, how can we strengthen the call for collaboration? What does that look like? So a lot of the language was updated in the IT initiative itself and its statement of work to really make that part clear about the need for collaboration and how they demonstrate that collaboration. And then the final thing that we really spent a lot of time talking about and beefed up in the statement of work is related to parent family engagement. As a At the core of a family resource center, the primary tenet is being family-centered services. What does that mean, and how is that different from the service provision that's in existence right now with other centers? And that's the number one standard, improvement standards that the national center pushes, and they provide resources and tools on how to measure family and parent engagement in terms of feeding the services. We keep that up as well in its work. So I'll pause there in terms of and take maybe questions around the statement of work itself, and then go into the evaluation process.
See you, Judge Miller. I just want to clarify, I think I captured these, correct me if I'm wrong. So honestly, I wish I had this in advance, but I wanted to reiterate the major things that y'all changed the scope of work is you added language for them to indicate how they were going to operationalize protective factors, one major thing. Well, strengthen the evaluation rubrics, make it very clear, strong on what it is that you wanted them to do and how they were going to be evaluated on those. You added the renewal eligibility part such that they would have to pause to have their contract renewed if they're not, if we see that they're not performing at the level of performance at a market, right?
We did not add that, that was always there.
Okay. all
We
right.
changed the dates because we're shifting the whole cycle.
You all included that there would be they have to have a minimum of 2 sites. That's a change. Another change is that the proposal, their response needed to show collaboration and not one single entity providing the service, correct?
It's a single applicant, but they have how they demonstrated the collaborative, we strengthened. It was always there. I think that
But it's
it's
stronger.
it's
And they have to show more of a collaboration. Okay. And then they have to be very clear on the parent and family engagement services. That's what you need to keep them. Is there anything that's in this revised statement of work that I did not capture? That was everything. Okay.
And if I may, the reason why you did not get it ahead of time is because we were having feedback sessions, and we had 3 entities that were already operating FRCs from Alachua County, Ohio, and Connecticut and Georgia. When I say Ohio, I'm sorry.
I think I told them that when you stepped away to grab the copies.
Georgia, Connecticut, and Alachua County, and we literally had those right up until Friday. So we were taking the weekend to try to, get it all together, and so I do apologize if we didn't have it for now, but we're trying to get it all.
I just wanted to make sure it was clear as to what those changes were in this. All right, thank you. Let's go to Judge.
So, my question for conception is, I'm not trying to close my eyes and see this, so I try to listen to some of it. Really good with sessions. So I work with those options. So these individual cases, so
Yes, absolutely. So the concept of the family resource center is actually to serve in a diversion avoidance of prevention space. So it is considered a voluntary space versus a mandate. Now, that being said, if there, so, and I think it says in the state, it's either the statement of work or the manual, that anyone that comes to a center is not going to turn down the service. They're going to be assessed and put through that process. So if I think about what you do on a daily basis and a non-judicial case that never comes before you, but there is something there, they could absolutely be referred to an FRC in their neighborhood, because the idea is that these would be in the neighborhood such that they can get those strengthening services to strengthen their family, because technically they are not in that court system yet. But this is considered a voluntary type of facility to reduce the possibilities of child maltreatment. So what we should see is, if we are looking at instances of child maltreatment, child abuse, removal of children in a particular neighborhood, and the FRC goes in that neighborhood, we should see the instances of that reduce over time. And so it is really considered more of a prevention on the front end than it is, for lack of a better word, treatment on the back.
Because we talk to a thing that no visual case is there, given that try to prevent case rises and young children. Shelter, so they're working things building capacity. It's that we monitor that and assess. Okay, with the violence goes to try to work with capacity. Some collaboration skill. So some of the other things.
So there is collaboration all the way around. So Alachua, I think, is a great example. So Alachua's centers are based on bringing resources to the center to make it easier for the families to access. When you look through the scope of work, what we know, and from the needs assessment and from all of our listening sessions, there are resources in Yadkin County. The problem is there are lots of barriers that keep families getting those resources. So the collaboration piece can be with any entity. So it can be taking information that Mr. Watts might have. So for example, he distributes all of this information on services down all around Circuit 2. Well, that information can be given to FRCs. They make that contact, and now that is available at that particular center. So it's not designed to be duplicative, but rather collaborative.
Let me give you another that's the house of the same call. General. That's a Dallas injunction. Together with through the time where the nation where one parent see the child. You know, all these.
So one of the core services, and then I'll let Holly jump in. So one of the core services in the state of New York is family time. So there is an ability to look at programs that partner with the center to offer those types of services. Now, the center is not a visitation center or a visitation space. For example, Northwest Florida Health operates the visitation, which is for children who are sheltered and in foster care and can be visited and those kinds of things.
Let me clarify, not visitation, this calls.
It could be, particularly if you're looking at the area where that center is, and that is a service that it seems like should be offered there. that's where the council comes in and speaks with the managing entity. We're calling it a managing agency, I'm sorry, a managing agency to say, this is a service we think we need to figure out how to offer at the resource center. So let's go out there, figure out how we offer it. If it's a situation where the council has the availability to provide some sort of funding, we would bring that to you all, and you all would decide whether to provide that funding. It could be within the money that is already allocated to the center. So the way to look at this is, and the example that I gave when we were talking in, I am from Leon County. I remember when the library was in Norfolk, and that was the only library. Then it was determined that the need got so big and it needed to be more centralized. So they made the big library. Then it was determined that because of all the barriers, there were people on the outskirts that couldn't get to the library. So now you have branches just about in every part of Leon County. And while there are services that those branches offer across the board, those branches also specialize in specific services, specific needs for that area of the county. That is the best example that I can give for what we want these FRCs to be.
The one thing I'd like to add is thinking about the core services, the difference between the library that exists and does an amazing job at providing what we would call in this area ancillary services, right? They have computer labs, they have drop-ins, and some of them even have, like the mommy and me read playlists that they host there based on the needs of the community. This is the list of core services that you should see on page 3 that I have up on the screen right now. Is parent-focused, family-focused services that align with the protective factors framework to be part of the prevention continuum. So the piece that you were asking about is on item number 4, resource referral needs. So this may include, I'm gonna say targeted case management or case management light, which to me is exactly what navigation. Like I think we talk a lot about navigation services and like the case management light. Piece of that, so it as the family supports that level of need, but there's also kind of differentiate in what is considered drop-in participation versus a membership or member services. And again, I'm using air quotes on this. We had a whole conversation about that in feedback sessions, and they really a lot of the folks that were participating suggested that the parent advisory council had come up with whatever it's called for that particular center because it's supposed to reflect the needs of the neighborhood. One example that Alachua shared with us that one of their centers, their parent advisory said, we need a summer program here at this place, and so they were able to find a partner to come in. And she said they actually voted to do Capoeira, which is a Brazilian martial arts. And that's what the neighborhood said they wanted. And they were able to find the right partner to come in. And that's the beauty of the center, that you can leverage and bring the partners in. And they were able to, I don't know if they provided the funding board or if they found the funding board or some volunteer that I think it's that level of detail from them. But it was specific to that neighborhood. And so I think that's the one difference or the big difference between existing centers that are out there doing some of the important ancillary services that exist and having this parent focus. These 7 would be the core services that are required that every at each location offers because they align with the protective factors, which we know are proven to prevent child molestation or shame.
So, Mr. Watson,
Kind of big questions, statements. If we lock ourselves into actually, I know, so can we lock ourselves into actually posting something happen?
We voted to do that. We voted to do that.
We voted to throw everything out and in expedited fashion, bring it back to the council.
Okay.
so we can change whatever.
Trust the team and everything. I am very nervous about something.
Right.
with the idea of moving forward with the Family Resource Center in this fashion. And I'm just wondering if any of these actual Children's Services Council around the state, or anybody have this like in-house, just any of these folks have the Family Resource Centers in-house in some capacity, where the Children's Services Council is actually somehow taking that role.
So that would be Hillsborough.
Okay.
So Hillsborough County has 7 centers. They didn't start with 7.
Right.
But they have 7 centers that they operate and fund. They used to have different managing agencies for each one, and decided that that was not the most economic way to manage it. So they re-procured it for one managing agency that manages all 7. And the 7 are in the specific parts of the county where the need was. We had a chance to go down and visit 3 of them. And the collaboration and partnership that those centers have created is pretty amazing. And the difference that they've seen in those neighborhoods regarding the family resiliency, strengthening. I know the council talked about birth to 3 and birth to 8. The programming that they've been able to put in to speak to that birth to 3, birth to 8, socialization is out of this world.
And those are children's service councils.
Yeah,
Oh, okay.
Hillsborough Kids Inc.
Okay.
is, no, the children's board. I'm thinking of the CBC,
But I'm
I'm
funded
sorry.
by the children's service.
It's funded by the Children's Services Council, but the entity, so LSF, Blueprint Services Florida, yeah, LSF is the managing agency. And so there is funding that Hillsborough, the Children's Board provides, but LSF also uses their influence to bring in other collaboration and service.
But do you know if there was a procurement for that, or were there direct services that they just?
No, there was a procurement for the establishment of the center.
I think part of my nervousness for it is maybe twofold, maybe just kind of talk about as well, is the amount of the investment. Okay? And, you know. The amount of the investment and the potential, I'm going off of what we just experienced, you know, with the last round. Are we setting, you know, our for this community, do we likely have, for what you're envisioning, do we need to go this far? Is it an opportunity to pilot something in the area? Is there something like to see what really works? Like this is big, and I don't know, something doesn't fit right, that we might be setting people up for failure. If with this amount, I know there will be a high level of accountability for the measures, what I read here, what we would be expecting. And so I think all of that needs to be in, I just, it's not sitting right here.
Can I address that?
Yeah.
I'm gonna address that. So to establish up to 2 centers is a pilot.
Okay.
That is what we will use
Okay.
to determine whether it will work. But
At 4 million? At the.
well,
at the
it's
cap-
up to 4 million over 2 years.
Mhm.
So it's up to 4 million over 2 years, what you all approved. Of course, when the applications come in, part of that evaluation process is looking at the budget that they propose. And if that is in line with what we've seen in other areas. So I think this serves as that pilot. I go back to those listening sessions and listening to Karen. And I think Commissioner Cumming, might have been Chair Glenn, talked about a grandmother just needing somebody to braid her child's hair. Like there's nobody in her neighborhood that she would trust to braid her child's hair. But if there were a center there and that parent advisory board realized, we got a lot of girls in our neighborhood, we need to bring a stylist in here once a month or whatever to braid hair for free. Now that grandmother has a resource for that child. Now, know that may sound vain, but that's a real need out there. So I think that, don't know if I'm helping you with your trepidation, but this is a pilot. And matter of fact, former council member, Liza left. We were very ambitious. We were trying to get three or four in 2 years. And she was on the program services committee. And she said, hold on. I think that's a little ambitious. But up to two makes sense. And so it could be that we start with the one and make sure that it is where it needs to be for that neighborhood. And part of this statement of work is working with the managing agency all along the way. And they are giving us a timeline in real time to know when and if it's time to expand.
I have two more things. In my time working in Franklin County, I know that community created a model like this. It was in school, and what this organization did, they were able to get this school and have these different providers come in. There's a substance abuse point of contact, one-stop shop for that community, domestic violence. And here's what I'm going with that. It is possible, I know that with the new what will go out, that they have to articulate who the partners will be, correct? I'm almost would like to encourage with these, we have an issue such as, so that means to me
What
like
page
it
are
could be
you on,
negotiable. The
Vice Chair?
second page. So it's like evolving research and evaluation indicate that family resource centers are promising strategies for addressing such issues as, which tells me that that's maybe option. So not necessarily that they have to target all those things, but that these could be some of the items that the resource center, their proposal would address. That's fair.
Yeah.
It's almost like maybe, sorry. I propose that maybe they shouldn't be negotiable, these items.
So, I'm sorry, on page 4, these are non-negotiable items,
Correct.
correct?
So those additional services come with time. So the core services are what we want as soon as it opens, right? Ancillary service could also be there, but as we're growing it, and you're starting with the strength and needs, the support services, parent education and social connection, concrete support, that type of stuff, and that the resource referral, that's for those additional pieces. But that might come as we go. We can certainly strengthen that when we're talking about resource referral. So the idea that the person that we select, or the entity that you select, even manage property or agency, isn't going to necessarily be the provider of substance services or domestic violence services, but that they build the right partners for the people to referral, that they know who they are, so that they're the trusted voice to be in. So we can strengthen that list of 7 core services to be super specific that it should at minimum include the substance.
Last
Which we can absolutely have.
Okay, so my last point to that, which is.
And let me add,
All right.
and as they do the proposal, because we asked for a detailed timeline so that we can add that you're going to give us a timeline on when these things come in. Either prior to opening, we can set what we need in there before it opens, so we can be definitely very more prescriptive when it comes to that.
This brings my last point that we got here. This is it for me on it. Brings me to my last point, which is we're moving into this space, and we've talked about it a little tonight about holding programs even more accountable. And so I feel like on this one, what we put out is you also want to, if at all possible, prevent yourself from being in a space where you award someone, right? And you're going down this path that they can't, produce for whatever reason, and you open that door to what's happening. So I think all of that is to be thought out. Clarify. Let's say that you award this. Say that you award this out, and
Well, you award.
okay, if we award this out, we'll take it. If we award this out, this is very detailed and I think a high bar. That's what I'm whatever reason, who are awarded, cannot produce, because this is a high bar, that we go down this path of you're not meeting expectations and having to open up this door. I think for the fairness of whoever may apply or what. Just put that.
So I think that we can, in the last section under the reporting requirements, I talk about the renewal eligibility assessment. We talk about conducting like a SWOT analysis of the program, expansion plan, compliance, and enhanced data collection and reporting to do that kind of the budget request for continued funding beyond. And I realize here, clearly did this very fast, a very expedited return. There's a couple of little things that we tweaked to make it apply with the new timeline. But we can probably strengthen that even more to be very clear upfront, but it would be stipulated in the contract. So in this procurement time with an invitation to negotiate, they can propose measures too, and in that negotiation process, you can strengthen it, you can add additional pieces, and when they submit that back to final, it can be stipulated there, but it absolutely would be included in the contract as well. The difference between this type of procurement and some of the others that we have done is to be able to negotiate and find where their strengths are. If they already have, let's just say that whoever is being interviewed is a substance abuse provider, and we want to consider that we do this, this, and this. The tools that they use might look a little bit different from a different person. That's the beauty of doing negotiation. So we do have the ability to laser focus and have an example or flush that out more as we go in the process when we narrow the field of applicants.
I do want to comment one on this, and I do see Mr. Parmesan, actually, I was coming, so I apologize, I was coming. I don't want us to be surprised at any point during the evaluation process if the level of performance is not going well. So I'm so happy to see Ms. Malone here with us today, because it will be my expectation that the specialist that's overseeing these programs knows what the performance is of this learning, this learning center. And if the performance is not there, then interventions could be put in play such that we're not understanding at the last minute or at some point that the performance is not there, and we need to, decide if we're going to take. We need to be made aware, and I think in the contract it should be clear you're expected to work closely with the specialists to ensure that we are clear on what their performance is. Second, Mr. Mitchell, Ms.
Good, thank you, Chair. So I share. I just got this. Appreciate that, Ollie, you're it doesn't make sense. Number two, if you go back to March 20th, as we sat in Pine View Elementary, I asked this question. Paint for me the picture of a family resource center. It's the first time it came up. And the date sticks out in my brain very, very well, and the moment does. No one could paint for me the picture. And I find myself here facing the same problem. The judge asked a very good question. He's, hey, I've got a real life problem. Is that something we could send it to? Perhaps for $1 million? No. Here's what I love that idea. I think it's a fantastic idea. This council, I think, has the obligation of services to tell them, not perhaps you do this, not perhaps you do a drug intervention or a recovery program, but we want it. These are the areas that are critical to this council. And we are asking a family resource center, which is really a building. That's really all it is. It's a building. It's what's in that building that we should be paying. And a managing agency is really, I see why Hillsborough County does it. That's us. But and maybe I missed this stuff. I have never missed a meeting, but maybe I missed this stuff. I have never once said, I stuck stickers on priorities, but never about a family resource center, what should be in that building, not once. And in fact, where we stuck the stickers, we're not accomplishing. So I'm all for the concept. I love this concept. putting library branches around the community that offer services that when a family comes into Judge Miller's courtroom, he knows, he doesn't have a question as to whether or not is this family resource center able to handle it. I know for a fact. And what I would love to do, and I have no problem with wiggling, giving some wiggle room on the concept. Let's really protect it, because $4 million is a lot of money. And if it's like the Hillsborough County, started with just one, and it built to, a bigger thing. This could become the Children's Services Council. This is essentially what we could be doing by putting resource centers around the county and offering your library model services. But council's never been asked, what should we ask? What should we demand? We've never voted on that. It's really never even been a discussion. And we've got a scope of work here. Again, Mr. Wattson's point, I felt badly the last meeting. The two applicants that came forward, I think they were probably facing the same thing that I'm facing. Not what you would like to, not such as these are the services that will be provided in those resource centers. So one, I haven't read the scope of work, and I thought, do I just stop listening to what Holly says, which I think is far more informative than what I can possibly read, or do I listen? So I chose to listen, not read the scope of work. But you're asking us to vote on an ITN for $4 million for just getting the scope of work. And I know it's very simple, which I read. But I had a problem with the first one. It wasn't specific. It just wasn't. I knew that we wanted an organization with national standards. I knew that there were going to be two in the last one. And services could be like, this is what's going to go on. You've got this family that's struggling, you've got children that are struggling. Oh, we don't have that service. Or, oh, we do have that service.
Okay, thank you, Madam Chair. One of the things that I wanted to do for my last session, for my last council meeting, is just become more knowledgeable of what the resource centers do, what they provide. One reason why I obligated myself to listen to the sessions where you had individuals from a lot of county, from Cincinnati and from Georgia, talk about their resource centers. Believe it or not, all three of them were unique citizens. One was for Hispanic population. In other words, they targeted certain demographics, targeted certain problems there. When we had the feedback session of the Holly and those had a great map of Leon County. And the map indicated those areas of concentration where there was most needs as it relates to our families and clearly our children. So now, I'm not sure if the intention is to negotiate to include that map, or if in those certain programs they respond to that, given it extra credit for proposing resource centers in those areas. I don't know if the map was included in the first IT.
So it was referenced in the needs assessment, it's published in the act, as part of the needs assessment.
The map wasn't there.
The map was not in the original, it would be in its reference to the new instrument, and the map would be the attachment. And we're trying to, the version of it with a census tract breakdown. I
demonstrate that. Right, the great athlete will be attached as an exhibit for those that decided to respond to it. I haven't had a chance to read, these handouts, and I was told that there was a certain amount of time for council members to read these and perhaps, give some feedback. And I think that we might need to be a little bit more definitive to the service provider as far as what we want. I think, and I agree with the council member, Watts, to look at the areas that's suggested strategies in certain areas. I think we need to be more definitive and more direct and say your proposal must include this. I believe that services for families and children in the resource centers, I believe that is our primary focus. Not correct, so we can do the deal in a positive direction for our families, for our children. And listening to representatives from those resource centers, some of them have been in operation, for years. I think we have to project the goal, perhaps, in the IGP to allow those that want to respond to project on what they can do and maybe build upon the first center, the first whatever year or month, what have you, project in other areas. But I think if we want these centers in specific areas of need here in Young County, it can be for, zip code, field, region 303. I believe we can give specific direction in the IT. But their proposal should target resource center in those areas. And I think from the needs assessment, I think we really have to figure out a way to do that, and not just have a resource center in the county. If it's directly designed to provide services to those individuals that are, that's very,
Yeah.
So I think we can go a little bit more specific.
All right, okay, did not see these, okay. Mr. Mitchell, then.
So here's my thought. I don't want to send the wrong message. We have a retreat. This would like that $4 million. I get the fact that we're in a we would like something. I want to get it right. I want to get this. I really want to get this right. I want to get it right, not because it's $4 million. I want to get it right because it's so important. I think it would be an amazing day in Leon County when a judge in the circuit court can say to a family, have a reason. That's moving the needle exactly as Commissioner Cummings is talking about. That can be a life-altering moment before a judge. So I want to get it right. I would love, I see that there's 5 in the city here, but I would love all 8 of us. And I would love it to, hey, when we talk about people in Cincinnati, the people in Georgia, the people in Alachua County, what are the needs that we want that? And I get the fact that it's asking that we delay it another month, but I think it's worth 30 days, or not 30 days, but this is almost a moment, 30 days, where we are saying, keep the scope of work, everything. Here are the specific things we want in. These are the areas we want targeted. We got us one or two new safety vendors, because then it's fair to the providers. Now it is.
I completely agree. I'm coming to you right now, Mr. Miller. I do want to say, in all fairness, I do think that the only reason why the staff brought this forward is because during that vote, it was requested that there would be an expedited process.
I made the
And
motion.
that may bring it to this meeting. So that's the only reason why it's here. So, but we do have the ability to say, thank you for doing what we requested. However, we want more time to review this and be prepared for it. As long as we understand that our timeline is gonna get pushed back, as long as we make that decision and we make that decision, that I'm personally fine with that, but I wanted to acknowledge the fact that that was a request of the council that they put in.
And I don't want to send, I'm trying, I didn't want to send a message on board concept. I'm now beginning to understand, since asking the question on March 23rd, what the concept is. You know, how we did a great job of the overview. I get it. But there's a lot of, we could do that, we could, I was right. No, we will, do this. Because then, you know, but our new operations person, Ms. Malone, can, oh, I want them graded on this. And how are they doing? How are they doing on providing food services and this service, that service, not as a such as. All right.
Mr. Brown.
Council, Mitchell got hit on something that I was like to do. Like you all had those visions from other localities on that Zoom call. What did we expect? It sounds like we're gonna, a lot of us on the negotiation and evaluation is go ahead and do some homework here. I don't know if you got any videos of like virtual tools or something that we can get it to do. Sure.
No. Later the very large table. I mean, I would love to.
Do want to differentiate just a little bit between our families that are in the group and our families that are not. I want to ensure that we're providing something for our families before they get to the dependency system. And I think that's really the idea behind the FRC. Now, I'm saying that because I think it's important, because that's what you're going to hear.
Would that even include judicial cases? Say, the system, because there are two levels, you know, like
Right.
If the court is not involved, the Department of Children and Families.
Right, and they have definitely, absolutely. What I want to ensure though is that we're not encroaching on what the CSC does, what the child community-based care agency does, and in their role as the manager and overseer of those case managers and all of that, because they have their own consortium. That's not the right word, collection of paid providers for the services that are required when a family is in the dependency system, and even in the non-judicial piece of that, because having done that, the non-judicial cases many times get higher than even those judicial cases. But I do want to say that while serving that population is very important, there is a community-based care agency that is charged with that. I think we were looking at this as a preventative measure before they even get to you. So it's to really reduce anything that could make that family come to you, which is why I said we would want to look at areas where that maltreatment, where cases are very high, maybe put a center there. And then what we should see is you should start seeing a reduction because you're not sending more families into that system. So I say that because I just want us to keep that in mind as we go back and look at this, so that we are not encroaching on a system that is already in place. Now, I'll go back and say, it doesn't mean that if they come to the center, they will get assistance. We're not trying, the center doesn't turn anyone away. I agree with you. You can be more descriptive and get those services in, but I want to make sure that the council doesn't duplicate what is already, but if that makes sense.
Was there any one of those centers that stood out to you, really navigated that, and they were able to
Alachua County.
replicate those populations?
And I'll tell you why Alachua County stood out to me, because the community-based care agency is the entity that funds, it. So the community-based care agency is us. And they're the ones that help to establish, so that allows them to keep that line of demarcation very clear. So that those resource centers are working to keep the families away from the dependency system. And then they have a whole nother set of services that they use, their funding from PCF to deal with those families that are in the dependency.
All right, thank you. Any additional comments?
No.
Okay, this is in line with what we just discussed, and I think one of the things that we need to specifically require any of the respondents to do is to show how they will be effective collaborating with other service providers in the city now. I know we can't duplicate service for someone to the staff that created the accounts. However, I think those services that are in the community for our children and for our families, the centers should be knowledgeable of those services. And I believe that they should respond in what it actually do, on how they can collaborate with other service providers and provide that information to any of the families that come in for service. But I want to read this. I want to give some feedback. I think you've done a great job. You've done an awesome job. But I think we need to be specific and we need to tell them what we want. We need to tell them, when you respond, show this, show that. And that way we'll have a better evaluation tool depending on who grades it.
Yeah, because you could read them side by side and say, boom, if they hit the mark, not so much.
And our suggestions, this is what.
Based on what I'm hearing from this conversation, I don't think we're prepared to vote on this today. So what I am proposing, two things. Number one, I do think the council needs time to sit down and go through this and review this carefully. And I would like to request an opportunity for us to have a conversation with one of the FRCs, Alachua County, maybe via Zoom. I don't know if they could be a part of our strategic planning session. I don't want to call it a retreat. I know we have a full agenda, right? But an opportunity for us to engage directly with them so that what we hear from them is in line with what we're reading, what we're saying, and then we can provide definitely written feedback to the staff with regards to any revisions that we're requesting.
She has some resources like video.
Yeah. I'd like to be able to send, we would like the team to be able to send it via email in a Word document to everyone, as well as links to all the recordings. There's actually a page on the National Resource Center that show, and that's how we found Connecticut and Georgia and Alachua. Plant City, which is, they actually do a beautiful virtual tour of one of the ones on Plant City. And that's one of the ones. And so there's like 9 links. So we'll send that as a resource page along with the tool themselves to you, so you can provide great feedback as well as do that. And then I'll reach out to Evel.
So that would be in lieu of.
So we're not,
They have that covered with her.
I would still like to, yeah, I would still like,
So
yeah.
if you will allow us, Madam Chair, let us go back, take everything you guys said and come up with a bit of a, I want to say plan, but it's not really a plan. Where we go to give you the information you want to be able to make a decision. We do have a full agenda at the strategic planning, but we can carve out some time if you'd like to have a discussion on this, and then move to get it finalized, and then we can move to approving sometime at our September meeting.
All right, that's perfect. Okay.
Can I ask a question?
No,
Absolutely.
Part of the icing with
Your
instrumentation.
confidence, of course.
I know, is it is this issue of the technically your next agenda item about the evaluation process, because the instrument will need to also cover that, so I just wanted to, are we postponing that instead?
Yes, we are. Maybe that's just.
Okay.
Yeah, like, that was what I was gonna say. That's a part of the conversation that we're gonna have with regards to the ITN. So as we speak, I am basically striking a vote on the RFP of the ITN and a vote on the evaluation process. Of those conversations will be brought up by the plan that the staff brings forward to us, and we will address shortly during the okay, all right. Thank you all so very much for that lively discussion. We appreciate that. No, because we did not. Yeah, okay. All right. So let's move forward to our next meeting date. So we do have the council strategic planning meeting or session, which is scheduled for Monday, August 21st from 1 to 2 p.m. I'm my mind is went straight to 1 to 2 p.m. Thank you, 1 to 6:30, right?
When you're sleeping, like everyone,
I know.
just so you know, it's not-
But no, absolutely. Ms. Green, I know the staff has been working through a proposed agenda.
Sorry. This play is notified.
Yeah.
On FR.
I'm gonna
do that.
Absolutely. Good. Thank you very much. All right. I welcome the public comment on this resolution. First, public comment. Let's get that. Yeah.
Learning more. Get a program. Understand what it's good for people to ask. Explain to me what this $4 million can go for. No one could explain. Everyone else here. I appreciate your effort. I would probably go with it a little bit differently. $4 billion is not a high period, but I'll get to talk with you a few months from now. $4 million is not a high. Get a little business, start out with a little business. You don't need two big programs. Let's take some of the money and let's work with folks in this community. If you want to have these national standards, fine. Work with some folks in this community. If you want to get into the business, develop this thing I'm quite sure with. I remember sitting and listening to people 50 years ago when I was a psychologist, still a psychologist, 50 years ago, and they're talking about the community mental health center. That's what we're going to do. We're going to have these community mental health centers here, there, that kind of sounds like what we're talking about doing. And then they said, okay, well, let's do this. Let's bring all these resources together, like you're saying, and that's a great idea. Well, then they were talking, instead of build a building and bring people in from all over, start here and build what you want, instead of dropping on something and hiring folks to come in here to do something, and we haven't even decided what we want to ask them to do yet. We don't have to be look at this system. Look at, we've already heard the community-based associates, whatever group that is. We got lots of city and county groups trying to do the same thing. I think maybe organizing all those would be really helpful. But to gamble, only government could gamble with $4 million. Okay, I tell you what I do. Okay, we have no demonstrations on every Christmas. I take $10,000 for the Hobby Lobby. No, Hobby store. Piggly Wiggly. I'm sorry, Hobby Lobby. Piggly Wiggly. There you go. Go to and you stand up and excitement, the need, that's the most direct way that you can help children. Now, I understand you, Governor, I'm not suggesting you pass out cash, but I'm suggesting you start small and build, and you don't start with $2 million or $4 million. Thank you.
Our next comment was Aubrey.
I actually misunderstood the agenda and I thought this section was on general evaluation comments, so I actually didn't say some things I wanted to say at the beginning. So it's okay if I can tag a couple things, but the family resource centers are a really great idea. They're a great idea because the people in this community actually don't know where to go for services. Everybody always tells them to go to 211. 211 gives them a list of phone numbers. And these are people that don't even have phones often. So I love the idea of services being in the community. I love all your caution. One caution I didn't hear that I really want to say is be careful of thinking you're going to get unfunded mandates out of nonprofits that are already overstressed. And what that means is that's what Mr. Carney did when he came in with the one-stop center for the homeless centers, for homeless services on Tennessee Street. He thought that if he opened a building and he ordered all these nonprofits to come in and provide services to the population of unhoused individuals, that everybody would be clamoring to come. But they weren't, because they were already overloaded trying to do the services in the locations that they work. So just be careful and look at the ITN actually asking them to pay for services to come to them, as opposed to thinking that all the nonprofits are sitting around waiting for things to do. Where that's different is like we hold a women's support group. We would come, if that's in our grants, not with you, but it's in our other grants, to go out into the communities and do those services. So I think there's a way to encourage them to look at those things. The other really fast thing is I was very concerned at the language at the last meeting and also in the Democrat about the comparison between what happened at Boys Town and the two applications that were funded by Oasis. And so, because it was so clear that people didn't understand. And so I just want to remind everybody that I wrote for 3 separate programs. It wasn't 3 separate applications for one organization. One was to serve women and one was to serve girls. That Boys Town wrote one application for one program. Now, I don't have a comment about whether they should have been funded or not. I'm just saying that the comparison saying we got $1 million and they didn't is really not, it's not apples to apples. And I'm going to urge you to please not think that you need to put a restriction on agencies writing or getting more than one application. And the reason why is that because many of us serve polar opposite populations of people. And so when I submit 2, I'm competing against myself. And I think that that's okay in that process. So please don't put that kind of a restriction. My last comment is the earlier part of this meeting was literally appalling.
Perfect.
Can I please just have 30 seconds? People in the audience were arguing, but with only certain members of this committee. And I would really urge you all to look at who they're arguing with and who they're talking down. It was incredibly disrespectful to the chair. Dr. Glenn, you did not deserve that. And I think that I'd urge you all to come up with processes and procedures so the next time it's a volatile kind of thing. But you had community members out there calling members, council members names. And disrupting our ability to hear, and there really wasn't any management of that. But I do want to say to the 4 women that I thought got incredibly disrespected in the process that I was embarrassed for some of the behavior by your audience members.
Thank you, Ms.
Free
Aubrey.
speech is a wonderful thing.
It is when you're respectful.
Any other public comments?
That is all public comment.
That's all of our public comments. Okay. Thank you all once again. Once again, very special thank you to our community members that took the time and to provide their comments to us during this meeting. So thanks again. All right, we have moved forward. Green, I'm going to ask you to please briefly review the tentative agenda for the meeting.
So council members, thank you, Chair. Council members on page 18, these are in no particular order, but there are some topics there that are proposed for our strategic planning. Please take a moment and look at that. We'll ensure that we communicate with our missing council members and provide us any feedback, anything that may be missing that you'd like for us to discuss. I have added to this a discussion on family resource centers and the ITN. And so, yeah, just please look at that. Right now, we are slated to have Alice Stansberg be the facilitator for it. And it is 6.5 hours, but I'm excited because we got everybody from 1 to 6:30, and I am very excited about that. So feel free to come comfortable. And we plan to really laser focus so that as we go into the next year, we are really laser focused on what it is that we want to accomplish. So if I sound excited, it's kind of time. Judge Miller.
This is just a suggestion, because I do remember it's good. One thing I noticed in meetings, I was saying, we understand. You understand. But I think that there's some value there, in the director, council, I think there's some value there, and we have a short statement. I think about online, stuff.
Yeah.
Do that and just kind of have a discussion.
So our next full council member meeting will be on Thursday, September the 14th, right here at 4 o'clock. We will have our first trim hearing on Thursday, September the 14th at 6:05. So that means that we need to keep our conversations first so that we can end that meeting at 6 o'clock and then go to our trim hearing. And then the second trim hearing will be on Thursday, September 28th at 5 p.m. So just reminding you of those dates. All right, so the next meeting agenda, I think a lot of that's going to come out of the August meeting that we have. And then I am sure we'll be moving forward on the Family Resource Center discussion and the evaluation process. All right, any council member comments?
I'm sorry, we'll also have that for class. So we'll probably come back with the resolution
For that one.
or the actual.
Any member comments? Yes.
Madam Chair, I'd like to, well, there has been comment that this meeting and some other meetings, services that were provided, that are being provided by other service providers in the state, federal government. And so I'd like to, if I could form a motion, and I'd like to council, Mr. Rowe, particularly the memorandum to the board members on the extent of Florida law as it addresses supplementation. I've had some experience with litigation against the federal government through supplementation. But I'm not sure if this is understanding, I'm sure it's probably not. But I think there's, as council members, I think we need to be aware of the, voting for certain funding for certain entities. We're also receiving other services, all that might be providing those services, but at a lower level. I think it is structured for us to know of the extent of supplementation, whether or not.
I don't think we need to vote on that. I think we can simply make the request for Mr. Rose. All right, thank you very much. I appreciate that. Thank you very much. Okay, I know it's almost time to go. Any other member comments? No? Okay, I just want to acknowledge two things. Ms. Malone, thank you so much for being here.
I didn't get a chance.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I would like to introduce Krisha Malone, the new program and quality assurance specialist. She comes to us with a wealth of knowledge and experience in evaluation, performance metric measures, on-site monitoring and has already just joined our team, and fits right in. So we're very happy to have her with us.
Welcome, 30 seconds, would you like to make a comment?
Yeah, I'm thrilled to be here. I'm really looking for the opportunity to work with programs that you all are funding. And that's what's so exciting to me is to see that what we're being able to accomplish for the children. It's going to be, it's all brand new. I have the background, but on the other hand, it's still in areas that I don't have a lot of experience with, but I think that I can fit right in, and I know that I'll be, hit the ground running, especially when these programs starting up, especially the youth mentoring that's going to be starting, and the balance strength.
Well, welcome. We've been looking forward to your joining our team, so thank you so very much for being here.
And so one last thing, if I may, so just so that the council is aware, we are at I guess we're a little over the halfway mark for our summer funding, that you all approved and provided. The midpoint reports were due, most of those got in on time, we had a few. So Dina and Krishna have been working on, getting those reconciled and getting the second half of the funding out. Additionally, Dina, Krishna, and Stephanie have already started doing on-site visits and monitoring with the programs. So we'll have that information available. Krishna's already, made some really good observation regarding some of the programs that they've done. So rest assured that the evaluation, accountability, and that piece, we are definitely getting there, and I think that we've got a system in place to do that. But Rome was not built in a day, and so just continue to ask for that grace to be able to move in the direction that you all are allowing us to do.
Thank you. Yeah, we're really excited to have you. Thanks again. We appreciate that. All right, and then one final thing, Sika, I think you had a birthday, right? So let's
I'm minus 60.
Okay, with that, it is now 7:14 p.m. and our meeting is now. Thank you all. All right.